up, my ducks? It's Simon here. Welcome back to the Hermit's Cave. Oh, it's warm. It's a warm day. I've got my mango water. And I thought, do you know what? I want to talk about tarot for a bit. It does feel like a long time on my channel since I just did something fun, talking about tarot, sharing my love of tarot. And so I was thinking back this morning to, I don't know, when I first found the community, when I first started a channel, which was nearly 5.5 years ago, and my first tarot tag, which was hashtag all about RWS, which I did in collaboration with another tarot tube at the time, Bobby from Ragged Poet. And I really enjoyed it. And that tag got a lot of responses, and it helped me to find a lot of channels, helped friendships to form. And I thought it was time to kind of, I don't know, just not revisit that tag, but kind of breathe new life into it. There's a lot of people that have joined the community since then. I hear channels being mentioned now and I don't know who they are. So I've been finding a lot of new channels. And so I thought, do you know what? I think I will just play about this afternoon. And well, I say this afternoon, it's early evening now. And just have some fun and talk about tarot. So this tag is all about tarot. So the first one I did 5 or more years ago was all about RWS. This is hashtag all about tarot. Now, I'm mindful with the prompts that I've put in. They may have been used before in other tags over the years. I don't know. There is a plethora of tarot tags out there. They're not as popular now as perhaps they were in the early days of when I certainly first came onto TarotTube. But they are good fun. And if you're out there and you want to participate, then do use the hashtag, because then I can find you. Because I'm interested in seeing people's responses. So there are 13 prompts. Now that's deliberate because that's my number for the year. That is by adding up my birth date and month, and the year of 2022, which is 13, which is a death year for me. And so I wanted, because I'm doing that in this 22 year, I wanted to do 13 prompts just because it makes it more personal and significant for me. So 13 prompts, all about tarot. And yeah, like I say, there's a couple of prompts in here that I think I've even used in previous tags. But hopefully, I'm not saying this is like the ultimate tarot tag, because it's not. There's some fantastic tags out there. But hopefully it just pulls a lot together and packages it up in this kind of, all about tarot tag that I'm doing. Okay, I think I've done enough of the pre-ramble. But the first prompt is, obviously, it's the first prompt. So it's talking about your first tarot deck. Not just your first tarot deck, but how you encountered it. So mine is this one. And this is the exact kit. When I say exact kit, I mean it's this kit, but not this actual product, because this was gifted to me by Sandra over at the Whispering Well. And I've got a number of versions of this now. In this one, it was just called Tarot Fortune Telling Game. It's now known as the 1JJ Swiss. 1 is just the product number. JJ stands for Jupiter and Juno, which is replacing the Hierophant and the High Priestess. And then Swiss, country of manufacture, original. It's US Games. And this, so the question is, or the prompt is, how you encountered it. I have shared this before. I did a tag, I think it was just called My First Tarot, was the tag that I did a few years ago. Again, another popular one. But I was 16, it was 1987. I worked at a theme park, and there was a girl there who used to read tarot cards, and she used to bring them in with her. And in the mornings when we was waiting for the floats and the keys, because I worked in the retail department before doing a short amount of time for entertainment, you would wait for the float and your keys, and would all be congregated, and she'd get out her cards and she gave me a tarot reading. She actually used this spread sheet that you get as well, which is the Celtic cross, and these images were really familiar. And the reason why they was really familiar, this one is actually in order because I've never used it, is because they're used on was used on a very famous TV show in the UK called Tales the Unexpected. So I was used to seeing some of these images, particularly the iconic death card, spinning around on this carousel. And I just said to her, I need to get a set of these. I also remember being really intrigued by them and feeling a little bit naughty having a reading because of my family's background. But also I remember Tarot of Witches, as it's now called, being used in James Bond's film Live and Let Die, and asking my mum, what are they? You know, and she was saying, don't bother with them, you know, that old sort of, oh, they're not a good tool to be using. And I've always had that impish nature where if someone tells me something should be avoided, I go and find out more about it. And so I asked this girl who worked with me if she would get me a set, and she did. I think I gave her £10. That seems to stick in my mind anyway. I'm sorry if the camera's wobbling. It's quite high up to be able to get everything in, which means it has more wobble. And she got me a set, and I love them, and I read for family members, for friends. However, these, where's my ace? Probably at the end, isn't it? I'm not quite sure where that is, but anyway, these strange patterns here, I just didn't know what to do with. I was like, oh, I don't get how you read that. So I just put them to one side, and I just used to read with the mages. So it wasn't until, gosh, because then I started reading exclusively with soul cards from 2000. The 90s didn't really touch cards because well into the Mormon church there, and they're a big no-no. But as soon as the 2000s come and the noughties, I started to read exclusively with soul cards. I used to do psychic parties and take my soul cards along, both 1 and 2 merged into a super deck. And I found them really intuitive to read. But it wasn't until 2006, 2008, one of the two, that I brought the original Rider-Waite deck, it's called. And that just opened up again because of the scenic pips that are used there. As I said, I've got many versions of this deck. My favourite one being, which is with me in this beautiful pouch that Anne made for me. Let me just get them out. There we go. This is available on MPC. It's by Conrad Stain. And you will see there is a size difference, as well as the fact that they're, if I find them moving quickly, as well as the fact that they're antiquated, however you want to say it. They're larger, and this is a standard tarot size. Now these are very small for tarot cards, so you can see the size difference there. But I love this is the Superior Smooth on MPC, I believe. If not, then it's the Standard Smooth. Both, you can't really tell much difference, to be honest, I don't think, between Superior Smooth and Standard Smooth. These are mixed up because this is a working deck. Doesn't matter if it gets a little bit dinged up, because it's easily replaceable for about £20. But I love this deck, absolutely love it. And I've really reconnected with the 1JJ Swiss. So much to say that it's probably now my favourite Marseille/Pip deck. I also have the 1970 version of the 1JJ Swiss, which comes in the 2-part hard case box with the gold back. That has beautiful cardstock. they just did then. In the 70s, when they made tarot decks, they really knew how to, you know, make beautiful cards. So that was my first deck and how I encountered it. I don't know what happened to this. I mean, we're going back 35 years, so I really don't know what happened to it. But I used to move around quite a lot in my teenage years. I left home at 16, had my own flat at 17. I used to move around quite a lot. In fact, where I live now is the longest I've ever lived anywhere. A very sort of nomad spirit within me, where I just used to get bored and move at the drop of a hat, and things got left in lots of different places. And that's probably what happened to this. But thanks to Sandra, I've been able to get this version back. But do check out MPC and Conrad Stain's shop. If you look for something like the CS Tarot, his other products come up. Let's just put this back before I move on. This pouch just needs breaking in a little bit because it's new. It's beautiful, but just needs breaking in slightly. Okay, so that was prompt 1. Let's have some water. Prompt 2, your last, because that was the first. Now we're looking at the last, most recent deck that you purchased, and then how your taste may have changed between your first deck and your most recent deck. Perhaps shouldn't use the word last, not when we're talking tarot, because I don't think I'll ever have a last or final deck. I don't think, because there's always something that comes out. Now, for this one, how I'm responding is the one that I purchased last, because I have been sent decks from creators, etc., or I've, you know, people have gifted whatever, but ones that I've actually consciously spent money on is this one, which is Pixie's Whisper. So this is the last deck that I actually purchased, and I love this case. Really love this case. It is the one that has different backs. Well, I say different backs, it repeats. So I think there's about 6 different designs, but they just complement each other so well. What I love about this is that it's an RWS, and it uses parts of the original 1909, the black and white sketches, okay, that was released at the time in Pictorial Key to the Tarot, etc. And then it's got this modern twist. Fantastic use of colour, but I'm glad that they haven't coloured it in. I like the contrast of something that is so old, like 1909, which is what, 113 years ago now, with something quite modern, and it just melds together beautifully, that it's not jarring. I love the subtle colours. They are absolutely just gorgeous. The cardstock is gorgeous. It is linen, and it's that sort of superior linen that you get with playing cards. Just really nice. So how have my taste changed? Well, as you can see, from the first deck to the most recent one that I purchased, it's a completely different system. It's gone from being a pip, Marseille style deck to fully illustrated deck. How have my taste changed? I mean, you'll know if you watch my channel that I'm crazy about RWS. I love Pixie and her artwork, and I have had comments left where people have said, isn't it enough already? Haven't you got enough now of Pixie's deck? And my answer is sometimes, because I will buy a deck and I think, well, does this add anything new? But what I love about the RWS is the fact that it is the world's most popular, and that's undisputable. I know people don't always like to hear that, but in terms of sales and being out there generally, it is the world's most popular tarot deck. It's not the original, You know, tarot's been around since 1440. This is only since 1909, but it is the most common tarot deck and most accessible tarot deck because of the illustrative nature of it. And when I did a tarot-thon a couple of years ago, because I was going to be talking about Pamela Coleman-Smith and the RWS Tarot, I did a poll in the Hermit's Cave group, which at the time had around 3,000 members. And I think it was something like 86% of people responding to that poll preferred this system over any of the others. So my taste has changed in as much as I've gone from, you know, this style to a Besançon style to a modern RWS. But, and here's the but, I think the reason why I've connected so deeply with this deck is because it is the contrast between having something fresh and modern, but also incorporating the original 1909 and Pixie's artwork. I think it is done so well. There are always new versions of RWSs coming out on the market. There's one coming out next month in September, and it's got Hebrew and astrological kind of symbols on it. And I'll probably get it because I like to see what creators are doing with Pixie's artwork. But for me, this is the best. I mean, look at that for the Hermit. I mean, come on. Just gorgeous. So my taste has changed to a degree, but since 2006, it hasn't changed that much, if that makes sense. So that's my first tarot deck, and this is my last purchased tarot deck. I've actually made a purchase on a deck that still hasn't arrived yet. So had that arrived before now, that is the deck that I would have been showing, but it hasn't. So, and I don't know where it's got to actually. So, excuse me. Prompt number 3 is why tarot? And when I say why tarot, I think the question I'm asking is, why do you use tarot? Or why do you prefer tarot, if you do indeed do, above other forms of divination such as runes, oracles, bibliomancy, and all other vast and various forms of divination? I really feel like I should be showing something instead of just my hands for this one, because it isn't a visual one. So I'm just going to grab a tarot deck. This is the New Choice Tarot de Marseille, which again is a favourite of mine. So why tarot? I think there's so many reasons why I prefer working with tarot. I feel like when I hold a tarot deck in my hands, even if it's a modern version, a modern iteration, I feel like I'm connecting with something that is quite ancient. And by ancient, I know we're only going back, what, 600 years or so. But, you know, it's a system that has been used through the generations. It's been used in many and varied forms. It has a structure to it. I think a lot of people who come to tarot actually come via the route of oracle. And certainly, you know, as I mentioned, I bought an RWS in 2006. When I first found the YouTube community, I was buying oracle decks, and that's what led me to find the YouTube community, because I was looking up an oracle deck, and then they started talking about tarot. And oracle was okay, but all I was ever doing really was pulling a card and then reading about it in the book. Whereas tarot has a system that you can learn. And that can be controversial as well, because lots of people choose not to kind of learn the tarot. Don't know if you can ever fully learn it, but you know what I mean. Lots of people read it intuitively. The last paid reading I did, the person laid down an RWS spread, an RWS deck in a spread. And as she was giving me the readings, I was like, you clearly don't know the meanings of these cards. But I let that go because I wanted to hear what she had to say. And, you know, what she then did was just, she was reading intuitively based on my question, which is fine. And lots of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. For me, the tarot, because it has a system of, you know, 22 major arcana, 22 major life lessons, because remember this, the tarot is 78 kind of situations, life states, and 22 of those are major, okay? So the big things you need to take care of. The minors are just as important for me, because life isn't always about major things, you know. Sometimes it can be a lot of little things that add up. So the minors are just as important. And then we have our courts, which really for me are personality types. So I like to learn about the system, you know, and then layer on whatever intuitive hits I get based on the person that's sitting in front of me and their question, or why I'm coming to the cards if it's just a reading for me. What is it I'm seeking? So I think that's why I tarot. Also, the reason why I tarot is because I trust it. And in the past, where I think I know better, then I've learnt the hard lessons, because I've seen things in the card and thought, oh, I didn't want that. And I've chose to ignore it and do my own thing. And then I'm reminded later. And when we come to spreads, I'll give you a little example about, you know, how I check back in with my card readings. Isn't this just a beautiful deck? Just absolutely gorgeous. So that's prompt 3, why tarot. Prompt 4 is tarot pet peeves. Now this has been talked about throughout other tags and things. I've seen it come up a few times. And I don't have a lot of pet peeves, and I want this tag to be quite celebratory of tarot. I don't want it to be, you know, whingy. But I think it's important just to talk a little bit about the things that, and it's not major, you know, both of the things that I'm going to talk about. So the first one is cardstock. So I've got 2 examples. This deck I bought in Glastonbury a couple of years ago, and I love anything to do with inner child work. I still read children's books. I get a lot out of them. This book is great. Really, really great, good book. The cards are huge. That's not a pet peeve. I don't mind that. But when they are paper thin, and if I do that, look at that, it's bent. It is just crap. And that's a pet peeve, because I'm an overhand shuffler and they get damaged. They really do get damaged. And the artwork in this deck is beautiful. We don't need this huge border. You know, this could be a more standard tarot size, and just put a little banner in with Snow White or what have you. The artwork is beautiful, but I didn't use it. I mean, look at that. Isn't it beautiful? The Guardian of Crystals. And I know you could back them, but I'm not really that creative. It's just shocking. So I wish this would be remade. I wonder if there's an MPC version you can get, or I don't know, but I just wish it was better, because I really want to like it and I want to use it. Still talking about, this is an example. This is a Llewellyn kit. Now Llewellyn used to do their boxes with a big tuck lid. The book was black and white, but the cardstock was excellent. Then they invested more into their packaging, their boxes with magnetic side openings. Beautiful. I mean, look at that. Beautiful book. Absolutely beautiful. But the cardstock, again, a little bit better than the last one, but naff. And look, it bends. It's just terrible. And again, this is a beautiful deck. I love Alice in Wonderland. I mean, the itch is scratched. I've got Dame Darcy's, and I've also got Baba Studios, Alice Tarot. But I really wanted to like this. But again, it's just really, really bad cardstock. And this was the deck that I decided not to buy any more Llewellyn kits. I have heard that more recent ones, they've improved the cardstock, so give them kudos if they have. I just don't want to spend £30 on a deck to find out whether they have or they haven't. So let me know if you bought a deck recently from them as a kit and you've noticed an improvement. The second pet peeve is, and we mentioned Tarot of the Witches, is lazy pips. I mean, let's try and get a few together actually of the same suit, so you can see exactly what see it there, what I'm referring to. Do you see what I mean? It's just lazy. It's the same image in the middle, and then just the number of cups in this case, but it could be one swords, pentacles, whatever. That to me is just, it's just quite lazy. Whereas when you get these stunning pieces of art, I mean, just that in a spread, or, you know, these in a spread. I mean, it's a no-brainer really. They just look, I'm just laying down coins as well in this instance. They just look beautiful, really beautiful. So lazy pips, and it's not just the Tarot of Witches, there's a lot, and I'm not going to name them, but I've noticed quite recently as well, there have been a few decks being created. I've even seen one where it's like a flower that starts off as a bud and just gets bigger through each card as it increases in number. And it just puts me off, you know? If you're gonna do a pip deck, do a beautiful pip deck. I do like some that are quite part scenic as well, something like Pagan Otherworlds. They don't use the Marseille, but they are pip, but they're arranged in a beautiful way, and there's a lovely little scenery in there, which is something to go on as well. Okay. So that's Tarot Pet Peeves. Prompt number 5, how long have I been going for? Favourite tarot spread. Now, I'm not a big one for spreads. I've got to be honest. What am I doing? I'm opening a pencil case rather than my tarot. I'm not a big one for spreads. Sometimes they're fun to do. I never do a Celtic cross. I think the last time I did a Celtic cross was 1987, but I like to keep it simple. But if a new deck comes out and you get the guidebook, so actually let's just have a look here just to see, because normally when you get a guidebook, they like to give you a themed spread. Yeah, so you get things like this, you know, you've got the layout, so you've got cards there, go to number 9. So they'll tend to give you suggested spreads to use with that deck, and it might be themed, so it might be like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party spread or something like that. Sometimes they're fun to do when you get a new deck, because you it helps you to connect with the deck and the theme of the deck. So sometimes I'll do them because they're quite fun. But for me, when I'm doing a spread, other than the basic 3 card, now the 3 card spread for me that I will do, I always cut my deck. You'll see me do that every Saturday when I do a couple of category cards and I pull the top card, is I put the situation down first, okay? So I've got the Hermit. And then I go a little bit arse over tip, because I should really go what helps, what hinders. But I go what hinders, Tower moment, right? And then what will help. Now, when I do a reading in the morning, this is the day ahead, my intentions, what I need to focus on as I go about my day. I might have something in mind. So this morning, there was nothing particular in mind that I need to look out for today. I've only got a couple of things to do. However, I'll look at my spread and think about, take a few journal notes, think about the day ahead and how this could play out. But then in the evening, I could show it, but it's got a lot of things on it at the moment. I've got a little block that has a groove in it, so I can stand them up and I'll go back and I'll think about it. But what I'll also do is I'll pull another 3 cards, which is my reflection. So I look back, even though I've got these as a guide for the day, I don't want to look at the same things necessarily. I do to kind of think about, oh yeah, oh, I know why that was something that was hidden, etc. But I also do a fresh 3 cards as a reflection spread, okay, which is at the end of the day. That's something that I do. Now, if I'm doing a spread, I do the same principle, okay, just with more cards. And it's always, for me, a maximum of 9 cards. So again, I'll have the situation, okay? Then I'll have what to watch out for, what could hinder, what could trip me up, that's hidden a little bit, and then what could help. I don't know if all these are fitting on screen, actually. They're probably not, are they? Let's do it like that, so you can see it a little bit better. The bottom ones might just be off camera a little bit. So that's how I'll do it. And when I do a 9 card reading for people, this is the spread that I will use. The only other spread that I use is the 13 card spread, which is the year ahead spread, which I tend to do on my birthday. I have done them in the past for New Year, as the calendar year changes. I have done them at Samhain, but Samhain is very close to my birthday anyway. There's only a 2-week difference. So Samhain is the pagan New Year, but also my birthday being 2 weeks before is when I tend to do it. And that is a card for each month, and then an overall theme in the middle of those 12 cards, making a 13 card spread. Sometimes the middle card, I'll lay down an oracle card, which tends to be from this deck, which is the Moonlight Oracle, which uses tarot symbology anyway, as you can see. So that might be a overall theme. And that's the only spreads I do. My 3 cards, intention and reflection spreads. My 9 card, which is probably my most common one, or the year ahead spread. And if you look on the hermitscave.co.uk, which is the website, they're the ones that I always have on offer, because that's the spreads I do. I don't go into themed spreads, because you theme it by your question, really. If you're wanting some advice about love and relationships or career progression or personal development, then that doesn't go in there. I'm so engrossed in chatting away that I'm putting decks now, and that's where my new choice goes. Yeah, that's what I tend to do anyway when it comes to spreads. All right, prompt number 6, tarot system. So your preferred tarot system. Quite an easy one for me. My preferred tarot system now is, in fact, let's lay down some pips here. My preferred tarot system, just gonna lay down, let's find, have a look at cups, is RWS, okay? Because here you've got scenic cards that help you, particularly if you're learning, but help you to set the scene, really. Whereas using RWS, it becomes a little bit more challenging, okay? However, even though I started off with a pip deck, I never used the pips. Then I progressed onto RWS, and that is my preferred system, okay? I just love it. I really enjoy working with pip decks as well. And the reason why is because it does open up a reading more. If somebody's asking a particular question and you pull the Ten of Swords, it could be kind of limiting in your response. Whereas the Ten of Swords, and I've got the 8 here, but you know, because I just laid down the first 3 pips I saw. If it was the Ten of Swords and I'm reading pips, I will use numerology more. So 10 is about completion, you know, a sense of things coming together. And then if we're looking at swords, it's an air suit. So it's about the mind, your thoughts, about connections, or even self-expression. And I don't get that necessarily from that image. So using a pip, I can think about the association through numerology, 10, completion. I mean, this is completion, right? But in a negative sense, or can be seen in a negative sense. And then I will think about how that is associated with the suit. And that is a baseline of which you can build and expand depending on the querent and their questions. Okay, so we've got a 5 here. We've got a 5 there as well. And we've got we've got those two matching up, but different suits. So you know, you look at this and you think about disruption and conflict, and that's right, because 5 of Pentacles. When we think about the RWS 5 of Pentacles, which is those, you know, people that are war torn and battered and been through the, you know, a hedge backwards outside of this institution, which is warm and inviting, or perceived to be warm and inviting. They're outside in the cold. The 5 is very much about, you know, that interruption to the balance of the 4, that destabilizing influence. Okay, and if we're talking here, which is coins or pentacles when RWS came along, this is about, it's an earth suit, but it's about, you know, your home life, work. It's even about, you know, tangible things, like reality that's around you, using your 5 senses, that sort of thing. So the disruption to that. The 2 is about balance, the duality of all things, the bringing together. And we've got emotions here because we've got cups. So we're talking about, you know, the coming together emotionally, whether that's love or whether that's friendship. Whereas here, we've got that balance of things like your home life and your work life, getting that balance right. You know, thinking about things that are within your reality as well, things that are tangible. So in terms of tarot systems, I love RWS, but sometimes it's really nice as well to play around with pip cards and just expand out. As for Thoth, I tried it, not once, not twice, a few times. It's just not a system for me. It just isn't. And there are other systems, you know, Dreams of Gaia is pretty much its own system. I think what tends to happen within the tarot community is if a deck doesn't fit into either RWS, Marseille or Thoth, then it gets labelled as a tarot. That, you know, this should be more of an oracle, or you'll hear people say, well, I use it more as an oracle, and that's fine too. I mean, the tarot is an oracle, right? But yeah, my favourite, number one would be RWS, but I really enjoy Marseille and Pit decks as well. Prompt 7 is tarot rituals. Now, I do less rituals than I used to. I used to sleep with all my decks, but you know, I've got over 700 decks now, and I started to get a bit of a name for myself. No joke. All joking aside, I did used to put them under my pillow. I will connect with a deck. I will sit with a deck. I'll shuffle a deck. The only tarot rituals really I do in terms of initiation is I will kind of pass it through incense, just to make it mine. You know, it's coming from a factory. It's coming from machinery and ink and paper and packaging. And I want it to be imbued with my energy. So what I tend to do is, once I've got my deck and I've done a walkthrough and I've looked at the images, I just sit, whether I'm listening to music, whether I'm sitting in quiet contemplation, or even if I'm sitting with something mind-numbing on TV, like a soap or something, I will just sit and I will bond with my cards by gently shuffling them. And then I'll stop and I'll look at some of the images again and really think about them. And then I tend to carry them with me. You know, that if it's a new deck, it will usually go into a pouch. I've got a number of Kelly pouches, but there's always one that isn't used. And I just keep it to one side, because I tend to put new decks in that. It will go in my work bag, and it will just come around with me once it's been, you know, cleansed by passing through incense smoke. I don't sleep with them anymore. They don't go under my pillow. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. It's just not something I do anymore. Prompt number 8, how do you use tarot? Do you use it for divination, self-reflection, or other? First and foremost, I see tarot as a mirror. Oh, and there's my Significator card on top. I see tarot as a mirror. As I said, it's 78 stages of life, 78 experiences. And when I look at a particular card, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, what is it that's renting space in my mind? What am I obsessing about? You know, what is it that's keeping me awake at night? What can I do about these intrusive thoughts? How can I make peace with them and therefore find peace myself? So I look at it as something that's being reflected back to me. So in that sense, I use it for introspection. But also combining tarot with journal writing, I can get down on paper some of my thoughts and my feelings. And once we've done that, we've brought it from within to without, shine a light on it, deal with it. That being said, as I mentioned, I lay down 3 cards at the start of each day. They're the same ones again. And I think about my day ahead. Is that divination? Not necessarily. Again, it's introspection. How am I feeling about the day ahead? I'll reflect at the end of the day. But sometimes, you know, if the Tower card comes out, which it did for me a couple of years ago, and something happens that is very much a Tower moment, then I have to think long and hard about whether there are greater forces at play or at work. I'm sure they don't play with us. You know, this year, I've talked about the reason why I've got 13 prompts. The reason why I've got 13 prompts is because this year is a death year for me. And only 10 days into this year, my mum passed away. And when I looked in December at my year ahead card and I saw it was a death year, I kind of knew that that was going to happen. Even though at the time she wasn't poorly and she didn't get COVID and everything else. I just kind of knew. So, and then other things have happened this year as a consequence of my mum's death, which has led to further deaths, although not physical, but certainly things ending, transition periods and stuff like that. So whilst I see the tarot as a tool for introspection, I do also accept that when you're using this as a tool, you are connecting with something greater. And as a spiritual person, I don't have a problem with that. You know, if people pray, they're connecting with something greater. If they're spell casting, they're working with energies. They're working with something greater. People who revere deities, you know, I revere Gaia. It's connecting with something greater than the self. Okay, the macrocosm. And so I don't have an issue with that. But on the whole, the way I use this, first and foremost, is for introspection, self-reflection. Okay, prompt number 9 is your significator card. My significator card is the Page of Cups. However, that is the personality type, because remember I said for me, when I'm working with court cards, it's about personality types. Whilst it's about personality types, you can use different significator cards for every situation. So, I don't know, if you're, let's see, trying to find a major, but you can use it with a minor card. You can use it with any card, really. But if you're, I don't know, let's say, for instance, 2 of Cups, that could be your significator card for the situation that you find yourself in. You know, maybe you're unsure about a certain person, their intentions within a friendship or relationship. Maybe you're looking at somebody and considering them to take it to that next level. That could be your significator card. And the way I use significator cards is I will shuffle the deck, and then you can do it either way, really. When you find that card, there, oh, that's 4. It's going to be right near the bottom now, isn't it? Yep. Well, I shuffled that well because I shoved it in the middle. Shoved it. I haven't passed it, have I? No, there we go. So for me, that's the significator card. Again, what will help, what will hinder. Okay, so that's basically how I use a significator card. For my own personal significator card, as in, you know, I'd use that again. If I'm asking a personal question, I'll use my significator card, and I will use the same principle of what's on top and what's below. I don't know what to say really about why, but in my tarot journal, right at the beginning, I have this bit here which talks about the qualities of the Page of Cups. You know, contains a youthful essence. At my age, I don't feel my age. Flamboyant, sensitivity, naivety. I'm so naive, it's not even funny. You know, that's something I'm told all the time, is about my naivety. I am a sensitive soul. Emotional intelligence, I mentioned before, my EQ is higher than my IQ. I am somebody who leads from the heart. I do go on my gut feelings, so I'm quite intuitive. I have that sensitive side. I've often been referred to as a soft touch, which isn't great when you're in a management position, but it's something that I can kind of control. But I always look out for the underdog. In a previous role, I've been an investigating officer in situations, and I am very much on, you know, thinking, being really fair and balanced and thinking about the person who is going through what they're going through. So that's there. And also in my, and I've not shown this since the day I bought it. Do you remember me saying I bought this beautiful, oh, it's kind of like a file run. It's got my initials embossed on there. I bought it at Christmas. It was a Christmas present to myself to start a book of shadows, grimoire, whatever you want to call it. I don't really call it that. What I do call it here is my book of practices and beliefs. And that's what this says using the Theban alphabet, which is alphabet. But in here, I've put things in here that are important to me. And again, the Page of Cups in here, a description, what the Page of Cups represents, but also my personality type. And my Myers-Briggs personality type is INFP, which is the Page of Cups. And that blew me away because I always identified with the Page of Cups, and then to find out my personality type was the Page of Cups. So I've got everything in here about, you know, key characteristics of INFPs, cognitive functions, dominant introverted feelings, everything here, personal relationships with INFPs, career paths, interactions, friendships, relationships, etc. So that's just really hammered home and solidified why the Significator card for me was Page of Cups. Getting there. Prompt number 10 is your most expensive tarot acquisition. Now this one was a difficult one, even though I came up with the prompt, because I've got three things that were roughly the same amount of money. I'll go in most recent. So Pam A, Pam B, Pam C, and Pam D. Not available anymore, so please don't leave comments saying where can I get them, because you can't. But these were around 50 something pound each, so it took it to just over £200, and then with shipping about £250. So there was that last year. The year before, I bought the Neo Rider collection, the original Neo Rider collection, because I know there's a new versions that are available on Kickstarter at the moment. I was really upset about this because it came really dinged up, and these weren't cheap either. And these are beautiful. These are the metallic ones. They're very, very slippy. That's upside down. Oops, see, they're really hard to handle, actually, but they're just gorgeous. This is probably my favourite one of all of them. That one's upside down. I don't do reversals. There was one, the same kind of finish, but in what's called the rose gold. This was quite a popular one, actually. A lot of people got this one. And again, it's, as you can see, it's similar, but I don't use it that often because whilst it's nice, I liked having the colour that you get in that metallic version there. One that was a grower for me was this one, because this is a beautiful matte version. Different use of colours. You've got this mustard yellow rather than the bright yellow, but really clear, really gorgeous cardstock. Same quality cardstock as New Choice Tarot de Marseille. That lovely, thick, matte, soft, beautiful. I should use this more because it's a gorgeous version of the RWS. And then the last one in that collection was the it's kind of like an antiquated one. What I love about this, I love the backs with the metallic red, but I love the brush gold sides. It is sepia, but it's rose petal finish. And for a sepia kind of black and white type, it does have a reflection to it. You can see there, nice kind of oil slick. But it's quite nice. But my favourites are that one and that one. So they were about 200 and plus pounds as well. But I think, from memory, the most expensive tarot acquisition was my tarot tiles from Jamie Sawyer. I'm not going to get them all out because then they're noisy, but also I've got to then put them back in. But these are wooden. As you can see, we've got the minors on the back. We've got pentacles, wands, swords, cups. They are the 1909 cards in miniature, and they're in tile format. I do want to get a nice big bag that gives them room really, so that you can, you know, lay them out. You can cast with them as well, which is great. You know, how many people cast with tarot? I do have tarot in a tin. Whoops, sorry, I'm not the camera. Which is using tarot charms to cast with. That's our lovers, bride and groom. That's a cup for one of the minors. Oops. So, but to have the tarot tiles, they're a nice size as well to be able to cast with them. And I think these were about, from memory, about £250. And I did think long and hard because I knew it was an investment. Would I buy them again? I don't know, because I don't use them as much as I should. They're amazing to have in a collection, but I do want to use them more. But because they're in a box stacked like this, I need to find a way to, you know, to use them, have a big bag or something. And I'm always on the lookout for a large drawstring bag, perhaps an old peg bag or something, and to put them in so I can work with them, even if it's just a case of shaking them up in the bag, putting my hand in and laying down my 9 cards or whatever. So I think that was my most expensive tarot acquisition. Prompt 11 is your unicorn deck. Now, when we say unicorn deck, what we're talking about there is the deck that almost seems impossible. I'm going to look it up actually, because I don't have it, because it's a unicorn deck. Almost seems impossible to find. And for me, it's just bringing up people's videos. Oh, here's a picture. Let's have this. It's the Keisha Tarot. I mean, my ultimate unicorn deck is the Pame, but that does come up, you know. It was up on eBay a couple of months ago, but I don't have £2,000 to throw at a tarot deck. But the Keisha Tarot, I really like it because it's using the style of Marseille, or even when I look at some of these images, it reminds me of the old playing cards as well, the use of colour and the hair and everything like that, or the expression of the eyes. But it uses Marseille style, but it's also an RWS deck, as you can see here with your 7 of Cups. So it combines the two. And I know we've got the Marseille weight, which is also a great deck. But yeah, I really do want to try and get this at some point. But as of yet, I've not been able to find it. So that's my unicorn deck. Second to last prompt is number 12. What lessons have you learned from the tarot? And these last two questions are questions that always intrigue me, and they're the ones I will ask whenever I do a catching up with. I've been an hour, I can't believe it, I'm just having a look at the time. That's good though, no editing, it is what it is. Whenever I do catching up with questions, I always ask these two. And the first one, as I say, is what lessons have you learned from the tarot? What has it taught you most? And I thought long and hard about this. And I kind of touched upon it earlier when prompt 3 was why tarot. What it's taught me most is two things really. First is to have some structure in my life. Tarot is about structure, but it's also a discipline. If you apply tarot to your spiritual practice, your daily practice, it becomes a part of your daily routine. And before tarot, I was the sort of person that would get up at the last minute, jump in the shower and head off to work. Then I'd come home, I'd cook something to eat and I'd veg out watching TV or a DVD or something like that. Go to bed, repeat, see friends at the weekends. Incorporating tarot in my life has given me some time back. Yes, that means getting up a little bit earlier, but to be able to sit with my cards and write and reflect at the end of the day as well gives me some more purpose to life. It gives me clarity. I'm somebody that used to worry. I worry less. I'm an overthinker. I've always been an overthinker, but being able to get things down on paper, having a tool that helps you to see things a little bit more clearly really, really helps. So that's what tarot has taught me. The other thing, which I did mention earlier, is trust. What it has learnt me, that's bad grammar, what it has taught me is to trust. To trust because if it's a mirror of me and I'm seeing something here and it comes to the forefront, okay, it comes from within to without, and I write it down, trust it. Because I'm not only trusting a tool, I'm trusting myself. I'm trusting my own thoughts and feelings. And also when I mentioned earlier, if something comes out and it's not what I want to see, tough, deal with it. That's what I've learned. Don't bury your head, deal with it. It's there, be ready, be prepared. Nothing is ever as bad if you're prepared. Even the death of a loved one, which I mentioned earlier, I had time to prepare. Didn't make the loss any more significant, but I was more prepared for it rather than it coming as a complete shock. So I think that's the most thing. It's about having structure and clarity, but also to trust, okay? And the last one, prompt number 13, is quite a fun one, really. And it's the dinner guest question. Now, because this is all about tarot, I'm going to make it specifically about tarot. So your dinner party, you can have one guest of honor and 2 other tarot guests. Who are you going to invite to your party? So my guest of honor, no surprises to anyone, would be Pixie, Pamela Coleman-Smith. I could spend another hour talking to you about why Pixie would be my guest of honor. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to list below, if I remember, a video I did for Tarathon back in 2020, where I talked about her and her life. She was just a remarkable person, an immense amount of talent, not just as an artist, but as a performer, a writer, a publicist, she was ahead of her time. She was bohemian, she was quirky, she was funny. And then studying her life and the things she endured, losing parents at a very young age, her introduction to the Golden Dawn, then going into Catholicism, whether she was queer, whether she was a person of colour, lots of mysteries surrounding her, and then her death and being penniless in an unmarked grave. I just think she is certainly one of history's unsung heroes, and I hope she gets the recognition she deserves some way, whether that's a plaque somewhere imbued, or one of her homes in Pimlico, or whatever. I would want her as my dinner guest because I've got 1,001 questions that I want to ask her about. But ultimately, I think I'd ask her if she's proud, because she never got to see the deep and profound impact that her artwork with the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot has on thousands, if not millions, of people worldwide. And yeah, she never lived to see this age. She died even before I was born. But I'd love for her to be a dinner guest. Then I can have two others. I would have Rachel Pollack as my dinner guest. What an incredible woman. The first tarot publication other than a guidebook. And when I say guidebook, I mean, little white books or books that come in tarot kits, specific and particularly to the deck. 78 Degrees of Wisdom was the first book on tarot that I read, and people were saying to me, "Oh, don't start with that. It's not an introductory book." And nonsense. I devoured it. I loved hearing her story, her introduction to the tarot, and just her thoughts on each card. She's also somebody that I could sit and listen to for hours on end, talking about the tarot, and particularly the RWS, and not get bored at all. So what an incredible dinner guest she would make. And Rachel's going through a health problem at the moment, so not that I ever expect her to watch this, but if ever you do, I wish you a speedy recovery, and my thoughts and love go out to you for that speedy recovery. But yes, definitely would want Rachel as a dinner guest. And then the third and final guest would be Patrick Valenza. This is just a screenshot, because any images that you see of Patrick online, he doesn't look anything like he does now. This is a screenshot from the interview that I did with him back in 2018, which is 4 years ago now, which was a highlight for me, because I do kind of hero worship Patrick. So for him agreeing to come on to my channel and talk to me was incredible. And I just think he's a genius. He is an incredible artist. I love his art. If I was a rich person and I could afford everything that he releases, then I would. But I just think, the whole backstory he gives to his decks, the Fenwood Asylum and Mildred Payne, and the backstories and the investment into his products, is a marketing genius, really. But he's very humble. One of the things that really struck me about him when I interviewed him was just his humility. He was very touched by the people that were there live in the chat and the compliments that they were giving him. He seems somebody who, doesn't have an ego at all. He's just such a humble person. And I'd love to get to know him better. And he's often said, if I go to New York, I must let him know. And if he comes to England, he'll do the same. But yeah, if I could have that dinner party, then that would become a reality, because he would be a guest. And how great to be in conversation with Pixie, Rachel and Patrick. It's a dream come true. So yeah, so that's my dinner guess and that's my tag. Hashtag all about tarot. Well done if you've stuck with me for an hour plus video. But I hope you like the prompts, all 13 of them. I hope you consider playing along. And do use the tags, then I'll be able to find you and see your responses. But thank you for watching. It's been fun to do this. I hope it's been fun for you to watch as well. And until next time, go in peace. Namaste and blessed be.